In every Pokemon game, the Pokedex has been reasonably sized. Kanto has 151, Johto added 100 new Pokemon, bringing the count to 251. Hoenn added a fair number of new Pokemon, 135, but reduced the regional dex to 202. Sinnoh got tweaked from Diamond and Pearl to Platinum, resulting in a regional dex of 210. Unova brought it back down with a whole new set of 156 Pokemon, which was later added to in the sequel up to 300 Pokemon, the largest we'd seen yet, but not too much bigger than Gen 2. And that brings us to today's topic, Kalos. While it only added 69 new Pokemon, granted also 28 Megas, has, to this date, the largest regional dex of 457 unique Pokemon. The DLCs for Sword and Shield, as well as Scarlet and Violet, do add around 400 new Pokemon to their games, but they are basically new regions in themselves. This leads me to the problem of today's video. How the hell is Legend ZA going to fit 457 Pokemon within Lumiose City? Well, that's what I'm going to figure out today. Now, you may be screaming something at me like, not all Pokemon are catchable in most Pokemon games. Some are traded, or gifted, or have to be evolved. Or maybe you're saying, we haven't seen all Lumiose has to offer yet. There's going to be an underground, or we might be able to explore some parts of Kalos. Well, that's why I've had to make some assumptions. Ground rules, if you will. Assumption 1. All Pokemon in the Kalos Dex are catchable within Lumiose. Like you said, we may be able to explore beyond Lumiose to an extent. Or one thought I had is that maybe due to this game's focus on battling, trainers will trade or gift you a fair portion of the Dex once you've beaten them. However, I want to keep it simple and stick as close to what we've been shown. Then, in the future, I can make some updates. Assumption 2. This is more of a rule, but even if a Pokemon can be caught in other parts of Lumiose, like in previous games, I'm going to group that Pokemon and its evolution line in the same area that I feel fits best. This makes it easier for me to work with and for you to keep track of. Assumption 3. Pokemon can be caught outside of wild zones. We don't have proof yet of this, but we have seen battles with wild Pokemon outside of zones. This will also make the Dex feel less cramped than it otherwise would. Assumption 4. This is my final assumption. The Pokedex will follow a similar pattern to that of X and Y. For instance, most of the Pokemon from routes 1 to 4 will be in Vert Town, then 5 to 10 in Blue Town. This is probably my loosest rule, as even in the trailers we see Sandile, a Pokemon from Route 9, therefore Blue Town, is actually seen in Wild Zone 8, which is in Jaune Town. So you'll more so see Pokemon found on the same route in X and Y in the same zone for ZA. Another thing I want to add that isn't exactly relevant to the video, but I thought might have been during research, is that wild zones are explored linearly, a couple at a time. So you'll only have access to zones 3 and 4 after you've explored 1 and 2, or ranked up. Previously, I thought you might be able to go to any wild zone you want, and they'd scale to your level, but after finding out the zones at least go up to 13, we can assume there will be 3 to 4 zones per town, and therefore 15 to 20 in the game. This makes my prediction from my last video less likely. I thought level 15 was high for zone 6, but now if there are at least 15 zones, and seeing that zone 8 is around level 20 to 30, it does kinda line up. With the rules set, we are now ready to take a crack at Lumiose City's Pokedex. To start, we'll keep it simple and knock out the Pokemon that we can almost guarantee won't be found in the wild, which includes our new starters, the Kanto starters, and the Kalos starters. You could argue that the Kalos starters might be in the wild, like how the Sinnoh ones are in Legends Arceus, but I feel like its setting in the past is a reasonable exception. While these starters will be gifted to us, the legendaries of the region should be catchable in presumably the post-game, hopefully with some unique events attached. Now's a good time to talk about wild zones. Like I said earlier, I'm going to guess there are 15 zones. We've officially only seen Zone 1, 2, 4, 6, 8 and 13. Although, in the trailers, we do get to see a few more in the background. I didn't know how to fit 15, let alone 13 zones on the map, but I've placed a few extra. Green denotes our known zones, yellow ones I've seen, and orange are just my guess. I have a suspicion that the zones will appear and disappear throughout the game, like with the battle zone. In the trailers, we we do get a glimpse of 127 Pokemon, but most of these are seen with trainers or in the player's own team. That said, right now we'll be taking a look at the 38 Pokemon we know can be caught and where. So, in Zone 1, we see Bunnelby, Fletchling, Mareep, and Scatterbug. Zone 2, we have Magikarp, Badoo, Binacle, Patrat. Then throughout Vert Town, we see Pidgey, Gyarados, Inkay, Pyroar, Flabébé, Floette, Bellsprout, Burfrue, and Clauncher. Zone 4, we see Fletchinder, Ekans, and Spinarak. Zone 13, Pavilion, Pinsir, and Heracross. Then Talonflame and Emolga in Rouge Town. Zone 6, Fluffy and Swablu. Zone 8, Sandile and Krokorok. Throughout Jauntown, Spupa, Dedenne, Trubbish, and Garbodor. And finally, in Blue Town, we see Pidgeot, Spritzee, Whirlix, Staryu, and last but not least, Slowpoke. I could go through all the Pokemon we've seen, but their placements don't tell us much about where we can find them in Lumiose. If you would like to see the list, I've left a link to the spreadsheet in the description. Feel free to open it up and follow along. You might get a better idea of my thought process as well. Well, it's time to start guessing, so we'll begin where we always will, Vert Town. I'd understand if you'd think this, but I'm not insane, and I don't want to be. So I won't be creating a Lumiose Pokemon rap and naming every single Pokemon. Instead, I'm going to plot them down area by area and only mention the ones I feel should be explained. So feel free to pause if you want a closer look. I've placed a lot of Pokemon in some of these zones, like here in Zone 1. With how big we know it is, the zone would be way too cramped, even with this extra rooftop. So I'm going by the assumption that the spawns will change based on the time of day. There's a lot of water-type Pokemon, but not many areas with water. This has forced me to put a lot of these in the river and canals of Vert Town. Blue Town is odd. These zones don't feel unique, making it hard to assign Pokemon. I placed most of the Pokemon in these wild zones, but Whismur, Zubat, and Relicanth, I think they'll be in the sewers at an entrance around here. We haven't seen a zone yet in Magenta Town. There's a lot of guessing going on here. I have a feeling that Carbink will be found in the sewers, so I'm guessing underneath Magenta Plaza, and since Sableye eat Carbink, I've placed them together. I've placed a few Pokemon in Rouge Plaza since it's quite a large area and would be a bit of a waste, especially as it feels like it would fit a lot of late game Pokemon. This could be a zone that appears near the end of the game, as from the footage I couldn't make out any green boulders. I hate to do it, but I'm placing way too many Pokemon in Zone 8, as there really doesn't seem to be another sandy area for all the burrowing ground types, besides this small beach. You may have noticed I haven't mentioned any ice types. That's because, like with a few other Pokemon, why the hell would they be in Lumiose? It makes it very difficult to assign any of them to a town or zone, but I do have a couple of ideas. My first idea is unlikely, although I could see these ice types out in Lumiose if the seasons change. It would then make it more believable to see them during winter. Then, the more likely theory, which was suggested by a few of my commenters, they could be found indoors. This could definitely be the case for a lot of Pokemon I've already placed, but there are very few unique buildings that look fit for this purpose, so I've left the idea aside until now. Odds are there could be a few of these buildings to make it less saturated. However, instead of just placing them in random buildings, I'm going to guess that this hexagonal one will host at least some, if not all, of our ice types. At this point you may be thinking, geez, what a mess. And yeah, there's definitely a lot to consider when putting together a region, and I knew I was at a disadvantage from the start with the size of Kalos's decks, but I have no clue how to pull this off. Blue Town and Magenta Town are a bit too urban, which made it harder to place Pokemon there, unlike the other towns, which have unique areas that fit certain types very well. I could just drag a load of Pokemon from the right to left to balance it out, but even then, it's still gonna feel bloated. It would make sense if new zones appeared throughout the game, so areas we've already seen in the trailers could still potentially be zones, which would help spread all these Pokemon out. And while it would be cool if around every corner you're finding new Pokemon, I just don't think it will turn out that way. At this point, I think you've just got to stick to your theories, whether that's exploring outside of Lumiose or a large underground, then just wait and see. I'll definitely be coming back to this map with every new trailer, but for now, if you've got any stupid ideas for videos I could work on next, let me know in the comments. And I guess like and subscribe? Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you next time.